Hello and welcome to the last Team VVV podcast of 2016. Rogue One changed their intros in Star Wars, so can we. Joining me as ever is Kevin.
Hello.
Alan.
Hello, viewers.
And Ed.
Hi, everyone.
So as always, if you enjoy the podcast, do give us a like and subscribe. It always helps support what we do. This week, we are giving away a copy of WRC 6, yet again. So do check the website for details on that if you want a chance to win. So this is our last podcast of the year. I think it's fair to say that 2016 has been an incredibly busy year for racing games. Mm-hmm. I think it's been busier than any of us could ever have imagined, to be honest. So for those of you out there that think racing games are on the decline, you're wrong. It's so busy, in fact, we're still catching up with some of the releases at the moment, to be honest. Anyway, in this podcast, we will be looking back at some of the best and worst racing games of the year. But first of all, we just have a little quick look at the racing game news this week. Now, from what I can gather, the main topic of discussion really this week is Forza Horizon 3 for all the wrong reasons. Basically, the internet is enraged about... there's no way to put this. They've added microtransactions to it, and we don't like microtransactions. So yeah, you may remember in Forza Motorsport 5, they added the controversial token system where you had to pay real-world money to access tokens to then buy the cars in-game. And it's come back in Forza Horizon 3, and the internet isn't happy about it, basically. Are you surprised that it's made its way back into Forza Horizon 3, especially 3 months later?
No.
No.
If it's worked for them in previous games, then why wouldn't they?
There's always someone willing to pay. I mean, that's the problem. And they're not just young kids, they're people of all ages, and they just say, I want that now. I am willing to pay for it because I have the money and it's easy. And the money doesn't matter to them. So unfortunately, if you're going to charge an extra few dollars and there's, say, 100,000 people, very small percentage of the people that buy the game, but all the same, that's a substantial sum of money. And they make an extra few $1 million out of that. So to say, well, just don't take that few $1 million because it annoys the rest of the audience, no matter how much I dislike microtransactions, and I do, it's how they're integrated. I think that's the thing with microtransactions.
Yeah. And actually, on that subject, there is one thing I do like about this, and that is the fact that you can actually turn off the token prompts. Yeah, so you can eliminate that area of the game completely if you do not care for it one bit. So kudos to them for actually putting that in. That's the one thing that perhaps I would like here.
Well, here's why people are so enraged by it. Do you know how much the most expensive car now costs in real world money?
It's something stupid like £80, isn't it?
That's exactly it.
It's actually so it's over £80.
That's double the price of the game, basically.
Yeah, £83
in the game. That's ridiculous.
I mean, there was something like this with Gran Turismo 6, wasn't there?
There was. It started since Forza Motorsport 5, basically.
I mean, seeing microtransactions in GT6, wow, that blew my mind at the time because that was one title that I didn't think I'd ever see microtransactions. It just goes to show how saturated, gaming has become with microtransactions these days.
Yeah.
There are times on Forza where I felt like they actually have done really well. Where, for example, in I think it was Forza 5, we got a lot of old tracks like laser scanned and all new graphics and everything. We'd have them as free DLC. So yeah, great. But then on the other side of it, you get DLCs with old cars in that you have to pay for, and these microtransactions as well. So yeah, it's a bit difficult sometimes to love Turn 10.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose for me, the only reason why I'm slightly surprised it's in Forza Horizon 3 is because Forza Horizon 3 is the easiest game ever made. You don't need microtransactions to progress in the game. Because it hands out cash to you like all the time.
It does.
It doesn't take very long to be able to afford, a good, decent, exotic supercar.
Yeah. On top of that, if you've got the Ultimate Edition, they double the cash reward.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm earning like 100,000 credits probably every hour just by playing the game. It's that.
How much does one need?
Honestly, it gives out rewards that liberally. It's one of my main criticisms of the game, to be honest. It's too generous.
It's ridiculous. I've got a friend who got a really early copy of the game, like all the early people were from the forums and stuff, and he had tens of millions of credits when I'd only just got it.
There you go.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, for the most part, the cars are pretty affordable, but there are a few here and there that cost us a few million. Like I think the Veyron costs about 2 million, and I think there's an Alfa. I think one of the most expensive cars is there's an Alfa Romeo that costs about 10 million. So that will take
as well.
Yeah, so that will take a little while to earn, but for the most part, it's not that difficult just to play the game and be able to afford some of them. So, from what I can see, the microtransactions are completely pointless unless you just don't have time to play games.
Yeah. In which case, why are you playing Forza Horizon 3?
That's a very time-sucking game.
It is. Yeah.
I can vouch for that at the moment. I've been playing that game. I've been playing that game so much lately. I'm desperate to play something else. It's like a drug. It's like it's such a happy, upbeat game. I just feel like I'm on SD all the time.
There you are. That's the review quotes.
That is the review quote. I got to make a note of that. So yeah, I mean, lots of debate on that, but let's face it, microtransactions are never going to go away, unfortunately.
No, sadly not. I mean, as I say, as long as there's always someone willing to pay, whether you like them or not, or I like them or not, unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there willing to pay them, and that they're always going to be there in some way. But as long as they're integrated in a way that you can unlock everything, given extra gameplay, then I think that's fine. I think it's it's only when they lock actual key elements of the game away that I have a real issue with it.
I guess, for indie developers, DLC could be key to the survival. So in those instances, you can see the value of them. But, big titles such as Forza and Gran Turismo, we tend to frown upon them because we think that they probably should make enough money without having to sort of put these measures in place, which do frustrate a lot of players. I'm
sorry, but a game published by Microsoft does not need any more money.
No, I think it's fair to say. Exactly. They've got enough money coming in, but it is what it is, isn't it? So it is here to stay. But like you say, let's hope our publishers keep integrating it in a similar way, in the sense that you can turn it off and avoid it, that kind of thing. Nothing worse than a game that also. I mean, some of these mobile games in particular will prompt
very
you.
aggressive.
Yeah. I mean, you could easily hit the spend money button without realizing, thinking you were restarting the game or something.
I guess that's different because obviously they're usually free to play, whereas Forza Horizon 3, if you bought, say, the Ultimate Edition, you've already spent £80.
Yeah,
you spend another £80 for one car.
I mean, look at Star Wars Battlefront. You had to buy the game and then spend £40 on the DLC for it straight away.
I actually finally bought that the other day because it was $15.99.
Oh damn! I had to spend full price on it, and I never saw it on sale. I mean, I was always looking, never saw it, so I must have missed the sale.
I waited a whole year basically, but
I waited a long time. But I've enjoyed it immensely. So what can I say?
I had to get back into it.
Yeah.
Microtransactions, they're always going to be with us. In fact, they're going to be about as frequent as Assetto Corsa's Porsche Pack being delayed. Basically, that's the best I could do for a segue for that one.
Yeah.
So yes, we're back onto Assetto Corsa and the never-ending delays of the Porsche Pack. Well, they're saying that Volume 3 is already out on PC, just come out, and yet Volume 2 has already been delayed on consoles until January.
Yeah, once again, the console versions proving a tricky business for the company, and I just can't help but feel they just didn't have the infrastructure in place to deal with the consoles alongside the PC version. We're seeing it time and time again, unfortunately. But like you say, they have to wait now till January, which will no doubt mean the Porsche Pack Volume 3 will probably be February. Although I'm not probably holding my breath for February because that could well see more.
I think we'll probably see Volume 3 in the summer.
Yeah, it could. I mean, I've ranted about it a bit before, but it couldn't have been more poorly handled. And there's no excuse for it, really. I really do feel that if they know they can release it on the PC straight away, I felt they should have regulated it with the consoles, held it back, and released it on all formats at the same time. And I think that would have made it fair and good for everybody. I wouldn't have been any happier to have seen it released on the consoles 3 months before the PC, for example. That wouldn't have worked either. You have to bring these sort of releases together, and it has been a bit of a mess, you know, in kind of understanding the dates and times and getting stuff finished and up. It's certainly not been very well handled at all, very professionally handled. But you know, I don't know how this affects the console audience. I mean, how does it affect the console audience? You know, does it affect how anticipated the DLC is, or how many they sell?
They seem the fan base seems quite bitter about it on console.
I'm not surprised. Yeah, I mean, they're treated as second rate, and I think that's how they feel. And there were many things to do. I mean, like you say, even the features that have been cut now from the console, that you know, some of them were actually working on earlier builds, so why they're not in the final game. So yeah, I mean, it's been a bit of a mess, and it's a shame because, you know, getting hardcore sims on console, it's important that to an extent that they do well and they get people involved and invested. And I think Assetto Corsa has had a real opportunity. That's not to say they're not going to turn the game around next year, but certainly in the short term, you know, and I say that from our video views as well. You know, there is no interest in Assetto Corsa on console right now, none from our viewers, hardly. I mean, there's a hardcore base, and that's it. You know, it's, you know, people are more interested in Project Cars. You know, they're more interested in Gran Turismo. They're more interested in Forza right now. So that's a bit of a shame.
Exactly. And also, what's interesting as well is apparently the delay is down to Microsoft, basically, because of all the problems they had with the Xbox One version of the first Porsche Pack.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really know what those problems are and what could have been avoided. You know, did they push a game out the door or product out the door that wasn't nearly fit to be launched? One has to assume that was the case, because if it's not past a certain certification, there's a reason for it. So perhaps they're submitting too soon.
Yeah, Microsoft are notorious for always taking longer to approve submissions, I believe.
Yeah, I mean,
them and Sony
have been on this generation, but you have to ask why that is. I mean, you know, is it because they test it more thoroughly? You know, I wouldn't know. Unfortunately, everything's under NDA. No one's really allowed to talk about anything.
No,
it's all kept very secret. So we never really know whether it's Microsoft's fault or the publisher's fault or whatever when it comes to that stuff. But yeah, I mean, we'll look at the Porsche packs and we'll run some coverage on the channel when they're out, no doubt. We'll try to get hold of them, and yeah, look forward to seeing how it develops on console. But you know, I think Kunos really need to get on their game when it comes to console in the first quarter of next year, because later in the year, you know, we're going to have Gran Turismo Sport and other titles on the way, and you know, it could end up just getting forgotten.
That's it. So yeah, I'm bored of talking about Assetto Corsa Porsche packs. We do it every single week on the podcast.
Yeah, it's gone on for ages.
So yeah, I think moving on. Obviously, the year of 2016 is coming to a close, and there's lots to look forward to next year on the horizon, which we will go into in a separate podcast, I'm sure. But we've already had a confirmation of the first game to be released in 2017, and it's not what you're expecting, because it's to name the full, to give it the full name. It's let's all look twice at that. That is the full name, isn't it? Okay, so deep breath.
Good luck.
MX versus Supercross Encore 2017 Official Track Edition.
Close enough.
That is the full name, I believe. Or near, or thereabouts.
Yeah. So it's yet another bolt-on to a bolt-on, basically, because the original was MX versus ATV Supercross on last generation consoles, and then we had MX versus ATV Supercross Encore on current generation consoles, and now we have the Official Track Edition expansion, if you like.
You can't really call it a new game as such, in other words.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, though, because they're releasing official Supercross tracks days prior to the actual real event starting in the real world. And I believe there was some talk of perhaps doing this with future Formula One officially licensed titles, but I'm not so sure. I can't really see it catching on, because people have to be waiting for that content for an awful long time. And like we discussed with microtransactions, you know, it's clear that a lot of people simply do not have the patience to wait. You know, it's a good idea in theory, but when you think about it, I just can't see this working as a future sort of model for racing games, releasing tracks, you know, just prior to the real world races.
Do you know what it is? It's basically episodic content for racing games.
Yeah, it is.
I never thought we'd see that in a racing game.
No, exactly. And yeah, I can't see it catching on. I hope it doesn't catch on, really, unless if it was DLC, it'd be different, I guess. But as they're sort of marketing this,
I thought if you have the existing game, you get it anyway as free DLC.
No, I believe you pay £20 or thereabouts for the new tracks every week once they start coming out.
Right, before the owners of the current game can still get it anyway.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but instead of paying £40 for the full title, they can pay half as much and get this sort of add-on, the new tracks every week.
Oh, is it going to be a full? Is it full price? Is it the official track edition?
It is. Yeah.
It's always been a budget release.
They're actually doing box versions as well, much to my surprise. So
yeah, that's weird. I think it's got like a black and white cover, hasn't it?
I haven't actually seen it.
Unless it was a placeholder. Yeah, I mean it's coming out very soon. Actually, it's out on January 4th, I believe.
Yeah, and unless racing game's going to come out in the first 3 days, it's most likely going to be the first racing game, and hopefully, 2017 is going to be a cracking year. But we'll get more into that in the future podcast.
We will. All I say is, will Milestone respond to this? Because obviously, they are the king of bike games. They've had MXGP this year. We'll probably see another one next year. Will that be its main rival?
Possibly, but I mean, the THQ Nordic, the developers here of MX versus ATV, they have to come up with something new now. They've rinsed the sort of Supercross game as much as it could possibly go now, because this is 2 sort of expansions on the title. So it's they need something fresh now and something that's really going to sort of show off the game well in terms of graphics and stuff. So
what's the problem? Because it's still based on a last gen engine. Yeah,
absolutely. It needs an update now.
We're long overdue a proper sequel.
Oh yes.
So there we are. So one other thing that that's been a common topic in the podcast is, of course, the Grand Tour. We're all car enthusiasts, so naturally we're very interested in that. Obviously, last week I was the only one that watched it, and to be honest, you didn't miss much if you haven't seen it. But out of curiosity, have you guys seen last week's episode with the weird cow car challenge?
Yes.
Not yet. I will catch up on it. It's meant to be a good episode, though.
Oh, it isn't.
Oh, really? I keep saying that in every podcast. People are raving about it and saying, "Oh, the last one was rubbish, but this one was good," and it turns out it's not that great.
Well, if we're talking about last week's, that was good, but the one before that we talked about last week was rubbish. Yeah. It was truly ambitious but rubbish, to use their catchphrase.
Do you know what? I think I preferred the episode 2 episodes ago rather than the last one.
That's exactly what I said. I think last time as well. If you thought the shooting challenge thing was bad, this was just something else.
Right. Oh dear.
Beyond bad. There's a lot of complaints as well, unsurprisingly, from animal rights activists.
Oh goodness. They're really going to town on the animal stuff now, aren't they? Animal carcasses everywhere now.
Yeah, it was bad. I mean, it was strange. I really thought that the last week's episode with the Moroccan road trip in the sports cars was actually a marked improvement.
Yeah.
It was probably, I hesitate to say, maybe the best episode so far.
Okay.
Like, it was the first, I think, apart from that and the Italy road trip, it was the first episode. Well, actually, I suppose maybe the supercar challenge in the first episode, but it was one of the few segments that actually felt like a classic Top Gear scene.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
I got those same kind of vibes, and it wasn't too scripted.
Yeah,
for the most part.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned this last week, Martin, when you said, in the last episode they were in Holland, and yet they went to Africa.
Yeah,
they should keep the action in the country that they're in. I mean,
yeah, that's what I thought it was going to be when it first started. I thought it was going to be relating to. So in the first episode, when they had the American test driver, I thought that was because they're in America.
Yeah.
You expect the whole episode to be themed around the location they're in, and to kind of like give you an insight into that country's car culture, for example.
Yeah.
They kind of did that in the South African episode where you had the spinning challenge with the guys leaping out of the cars whilst they're doing donuts. That was quite entertaining. Yeah. But apart from that, it's loosely based on the location. I think it's basically just an excuse, I think, for them to rant at the you're American, your cars are stupid.
I'm watching the episode, and it's like they're weighing dead animals against was it an MX-5 or something, and they were playing battleships with cars. It's like, what's going on here? You know, it's.
I quite enjoyed the battleship scene.
Yeah.
Because it reminded me a bit of early Top Gear. Like that's the sort of thing. Do you remember when they played Conquers with caravans?
Yeah. And they launched Reliant Robin, was it, into space?
Oh yes,
that was pretty epic, I've got to say. But
but do you know what I mean? It wasn't overly flamboyant. You know, it wasn't.
Yeah,
it wasn't
back to basics, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it wasn't flaunting the budget, so to speak. It was just old school. I liked it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Maybe it was a bit too long. That's my only criticism. I think the reason for that is because they've cut. Obviously, the star in a reasonably priced car, and I think that broke up the episodes a bit better. I think they're struggling to find a good pace.
Yeah,
which is why
it sounds like it. I mean, it certainly sounds like they've struggled to find identity in what they're trying to do every week. You know, they're completely rewriting the book every week, and perhaps they're learning this series, and the second series they'll tie it down and really get where they're going with it, you know.
I mean, from what we've seen so far, I mean, is it worse than the new Top Gear?
It's a mixed bag, I think. That's the trouble, and the same was true for Top Gear. Like the non-Chris Evans bits were fine.
I thought the new Top Gear was okay, but I can't really say that about the Grand Tour. So I think I'd probably prefer the new Top Gear so far.
Ouch.
Yeah, more car stuff, you see.
Yeah, I think the pure car content was better in Top Gear because you had people like Chris Harris and But I think in terms of the sort of more light-hearted segments, the Grand Tour is a lot better.
Yeah,
in Top Gear they just tried to replicate it and it just failed miserably.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
you still get the chemistry in the Grand Tour, which Top Gear didn't have.
See, the thing with Top Gear, because they're trying it from the off, they haven't developed those personalities yet. That has to develop naturally over time. You know, it developed with the Top Gear lads, and what they should have done with the new Top Gear is just be a little bit more serious at first, and then evolve that relationship with each other, evolve that sort of personality, and it will just come more naturally, and then people will enjoy it a little bit more.
I think the problem is
just reinvented it.
Well, no, I don't think so. I think they already had a formula that sort of works, and I think that at times it did work in new Top Gear. I think the problem is though is that you had two. You've got what's his name,
LeBlanc,
Matt LeBlanc, and the problem is they're very, very individual fellows. They're not team players. They don't seem like team players. Matt LeBlanc seemed to get on better with the other guys from the Top Gear Extra than he did with Chris Evans. So, but he still seems to me to not be a team player. He's a very individual guy. And at the moment, I think that even in Series 2, I think it would be a better mix. And I think Matt LeBlanc's good at doing his individual pieces. But I think as a team player, he as a person, there's not much depth to him. He needs a script to be able to get into character. And I think then he's good at it. But I don't think it's necessarily a natural... he's naturally inclined to get into our sort of witty banter that perhaps we want. And in that sense, for British witty banter, you need three British chaps talking about stuff. And I think that's it really with all that. Other than that, it just takes a while to get going, and like you say, they need to forget a bit about what's been in the past and change a few things and change a look to it gradually. But that's got to take time. It's transitional. But you know what? They'll go back for Series 2. The Grand Tour hasn't been the success.
No, exactly.
It's been the success that everyone was expecting. Top Gear's weathered the storm. And I think next year they can...
A lot less pressure.
They're laughing at this right now when they see episodes like that. And they're saying, thank God for that.
You can imagine watching the first episode with such bated breath.
So I think it's going to be on to round 2 next year in the battle of the car shows.
Yeah, absolutely.
How many episodes is there in the series? How many episodes left?
The Grand Tour?
Yeah.
7.
Yeah, 7.
It's a long series, actually. I mean, Top Gear's always been 6 episodes for the past few years per series.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Top Gear's coming back early next year. I'm actually quite looking forward to it because it's not under control by Chris Evans.
No.
Which means it'll be an infinitely better show.
Yeah.
Really interested to see Chris Harris do some more.
Yeah, we love Chris Harris. We love Chris Harris. I mean, Chris Harris for me is my favourite bit because I like Chris Harris's videos. I love his passion for cars. I love his skills. Love his skills. You know, they're amazing. And I just want to see. I want to see more of Chris Harris doing what he does. Chris Harris for me is the best thing about it. I just want to see him. He is for me what Tiff Needell was when I was growing up. You know, but I think it needs to bring the other two, Rory and Matt LeBlanc, together a bit more. You know, I think they still need some development there. You know.
Yeah, I think that was a core problem with the last series of Top Gear, that you know, Rory and Chris Harris were so underused.
They're underused, but you know, I will say again, they were all very much individuals. I mean, Rory wasn't even listening or responding to anything Chris Harris said sometimes. I mean, Chris Harris would say something, and Rory was like, "Yeah," and carry on. It's like, oh, come on, there's no real. I got the feeling that Rory's just enjoying the fame a bit too much, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah,
and I think that's the feeling I got from it, is that he was enjoying being famous on Top Gear, and he was a bit more cocky about it, and I didn't always agree with everything he said, but the fans, you know, were all like, "Oh, these guys are amazing. This show is amazing." It was all right. It wasn't amazing. Top Gear Extra wasn't amazing. It was all right. I mean, they gelled better than the main show, because no one can gel with Chris Evans. I mean, and obviously, as we know, the celebrity interviews went on way too long on that series. So, but they do have something to work with. It's just that these guys, if they don't gel in this season, they're going to need to change the presenters in some way. They're going to need to swap it around in terms of the second series of Top Gear. I think it's finding people that get on, and I think at the moment they need to be spending more time together for sure, because and I can't see that happening. So I think we're going to have another interesting series. They're going to come up with great ideas. There's going to be some funny gags. I think fundamentally, you've got three very different personalities there, and I think it's going to be a case of seeing how those evolve.
Well, I say, I mean, they must have looked. They must have looked at the feedback they got for the last series of Top Gear, so they can only improve on that.
That's it.
And
yeah.
Chris Evans is out of the equation now.
Yeah.
I think by now they probably know what works and what doesn't. So it'll be interesting to see how they respond to that.
Yeah.
So hopefully, in the long run, we will end up with two very good, solid car shows. It's just going to take time for them to get to that point, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I know they're both. I mean, they're both having great moments. It's just consistently tying those moments together. That's been, you know, without keeping the pacing and everything. So
the next episode of Grand Tour looks very promising, actually, because it's actually car orientated, from what I can tell.
No way.
Amazing.
No, it's a show about cars at long last. It's got the Ford Mustang, the Ford Focus RS, and there's something about Le Mans in the 1960s.
Okay.
And obviously lots of Christmas gift ideas, which involves them falling over a lot.
Right.
But yeah, we'll wait and see what happens with that. So that really leaves us now with just a Q&A. Right, okay, so it's time for our final Q&A of the year. Just having a troll on Facebook. So the first question comes from Yi Long. He's asking, what is your favorite top-down racers in history? In history? That's a bold statement. Ooh, I know what Kevin is.
For me.
Yeah.
Super off-road. Yeah.
There we go. There it is. Knew that was happening.
Micro Machines.
I'd say probably Micro Machines V3.
Yeah, good shout. Yeah.
I'm too young to replace Super Off-Road.
I had Micro Machines 1 and 2 as like a bundle game on my Game Boy Color.
Nice.
Best top-down racer for me.
For me, it's V3 because I haven't played anything before that. Do you have one, Alan?
There was a motorbike game I quite liked years ago, but I can't remember what it was called. The first arcade game I completed was actually Sega Turbo years ago. When was that? 84. I completed that. And you were sort of not quite top down, sort of angular looking down, as the old F1 games used to be. Action Fighter on the Master System. I used to play that, and that was a top down, and it's got amazing twee music as well. So there's that. Action Fighter. What else? I think the original Sega Monaco GP, I think, was top down as well, but you know, they were never that good. And of course, I guess the best one of all time has to be Micro Machines 2 on the Mega Drive, because the actual cartridge had extra controller ports in it. And that's the first time I managed to play 4-player on it at the time, because none of us had a multi-tap. And yeah, I'd say that was probably the most fun ever on a top-down racing game, was playing Micro Machines 2 on the Mega Drive. You know,
The problem is I just only just started getting into racing games as they were turning 3D. So the top-down race I played at the time was really Micro Machines V3, and also Circuit Breakers on PlayStation 1.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, so that's that. Next up, Alex Andre Gontijo says, do you guys think that Gran Turismo Sport will stand out as previous titles now that we have a pretty strong competition like Project Cars and Assetto Corsa? Well, yeah, we've been saying that before. We kind of think that Project Cars and Assetto Corsa have kind of overtaken Gran Turismo Sport, and it needs to catch up.
Yeah, I mean, it needs to come out first as well, doesn't it, Sport? Otherwise, it's going to be completely overshadowed in terms of overall package.
I think Gran Turismo Sport, technically, it's going to be very nice. Visually, it's going to be nice, but we don't know how big the package is. We don't know how many tracks, and the rally mode looks like a converted rally mode from Gran Turismo 3 or 2. It looks a very wide open arcade bumping around stages. They'll be massively fun to play, but dated in execution. I think Project Cars 2 for me is the one I'm really looking forward to, because they're pushing forward the technology. You know, they've got a lot of new tech coming. And you know, I think it's really going to take it to Gran Turismo. You know, one to watch.
Yeah, definitely. Adam Lee says, if you could bring any racing game up to 2016 graphics, what would it be? And would you change anything like the physics? I would choose to bring TOCA 2, for example, with Assetto Corsa handling and physics and race room sounds. Interesting question. I like that.
That'd be gorgeous.
That'd be imagine.
That'd be lovely. Yeah, we'd all love that. We'd all love a proper British touring car game, having all the, and especially the audio. I mean, the audio is so important. We'd love that. Yeah.
See, I would have said Test Drive Unlimited, but we're getting that now. So that's my dream right there. So that is the one I would have said. But yeah, it's coming, and I just hope and pray that it's going to be good.
I'm desperate for a new driver, obviously.
I suppose for me, the game, if I was looking at a game, I'd love just a modern conversion of Destruction Derby, because with all the damage modeling, don't do anything to the game. Just take the same game and just give it to me with the 3 crap handling cars that were in the original. I would love that with modern graphics, modern destruction. Wow.
Then we've got Wreckfest next year, which is kind of like a modern update of that, almost, with
similar
damage. It's tricky. I can think of series.
I think it sort of depends on what you're trying to recreate. Because, like, for me, if I could take the sort of community side of Forza 2 and plonk that in a latest Forza with better physics and graphics and amazing graphics and everything, then that would probably be an amazing experience, because I go and play Forza 2 and there'd be lobbies, private lobbies and public drifting lobbies of like 20 people at a time. And then you go on the forums and there'd just be drama constantly, and it'd be hilarious and great fun. But I don't know, old games, or maybe like, I'd really, really love to see like an amazing Midnight Club game again, because I really loved that when I was younger.
For me, I'm just to be predictable, I'm desperate for a new driver game, but I wouldn't change much about it because it's perfect.
It'd be nice to see a new driver game.
Modern day graphics, it would be amazing, and also Burnout. I miss Burnout immensely. There's not enough good arcade.
Talking of which, Burnout is available on Xbox One now, isn't it?
Burnout Paradise is,
Yeah.
That was a nice surprise.
We're looking forward to the reimagining, I guess, from Free Fields Interactive next year, hopefully.
Don't know when it's going to be, but meant to be a reimagining of Burnout Free Takedown, the best Burnout game there ever was. So next up, Stephen R. Wood on Facebook says, I think you should talk about cars that you've owned, given you've mentioned your dream cars in a previous podcast. So what cars do you own now, and what's the best car you have owned before? Ooh, interesting question. My car history is not that interesting.
No, mine isn't either, really. I mean, generally speaking, I've always driven like my dad's cars and other people's cars because I live in central London. So it's just not practical to have many cars in London. The cars I learned to drive in were, Nissan Micra,
Same here, probably enough.
Then I've driven lots of rental cars. I tend to rent cars quite a bit, and none of them are that impressive. I suppose I also learned to drive in a Ford Sierra 90s Ford Sierra 20 years ago. Driven, I'd say, various types of Ford Focus, various Ford Fiestas. They're quite cheap to rent. I've driven, it was, like I say, obviously did the GTR this year and the Ford Escort rallying, did all that. But generally speaking, car ownership wise, no. I mean, I've not ever owned a car I've wanted to own because when you live in London, you just don't need a car, and I think that's just really in London. You don't really want to park your Ford Mustang on the street, but if I had one, I'd love the Ford Mustang. It's the most impractical car, but it is something I'd love to get if I ever had that sort of cash. Ed, you live in a driving area. You've driven loads of cars. Come on, you must have way more exciting talk on than me.
My current car is a Lexus IS200, but it's not an ordinary one. I've lowered it to almost impractical heights. It's on R33 GTR wheels, and I recently installed some spoilers on it, so it now looks fully sick. There's more to come on it as well. I've ordered some Recaro bucket seats from Japan. They're on their way. They'll be on a shipping container soon. And more to happen to it. I want to put some screens inside it and stuff, make it look really Japan. What did I have before? I had the IS200. I had the Toyota MR2 Mark 1. That's from the
headlights. Awesome.
Pop-up headlights. It's basically an AE86.
Yeah, it's a great little handling car. Really nice little car, actually, and it's got a very passionate owners club as well around that car. MR2 only magazine and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I mean, I love cars like that. I was talking to somebody recently on MR2, and I said, would I fit into it? And they believe I would. That's actually been one of my problems with cars.
I
remember my friend got a Nissan Sunny a few years ago, bought a second hand, and I just couldn't fit into it at all. It was the same when I've like various driving, it's like, do you want to drive my Nissan Sunny? Yeah, all right. No, I won't actually. I can't fit into the driving seat. It was the same with the MX-5, couldn't fit into that. It was the same with the Lotus Elise, couldn't fit into that. I just couldn't fit in the car properly.
I'd say legroom wise, there's definitely more in an MR2 than there is an MX-5, given experience. Basically, because the MR2 has space because of the T-bar model, it had space behind the seats for you to put basically the roof behind it.
Yeah.
So, especially if you got a sunroof model, then it's still got that space, but you can just push your seat all the way back into it. So you could probably fit your legs in it. Your head, I'm not so sure. You might be a bit tall headroom wise, but I've also got I part own with a friend. We half and half went on a Toyota Mark II JZX 100 in Japan, which we go out to Japan and we drift it at Ebizu. So yeah, that's nice. I guess you can mention that, and car ownership.
Why not? In terms of my car ownership, first car I owned was a Seat Ibiza. Sadly, not the FR or Cooper models, because the insurance would have been more than the car itself back then, if that was the case. Very, very nice first car. I really enjoyed it. And then I've since got the Alfa Romeo GT, which I admit is an unusual choice, but there we are. Not something you see in the UK very often, has to be said. But contrary to popular belief, it's actually been reliable, apart from the door handle falling off.
You're not a car guy until you've owned an Alpha, right?
Exactly. I caught the bug. I've done it now. I've got that out of my system. Really enjoy it though. It's a pain to fit on the drive though. I have this thing where you can't open the garage door or open or close the back gate without having to reverse it all the time, which is not very practical. It's not a very practical car. I'll say that.
No, I think that's what I've always been about, practicality. You know, that's what I was looking at. What would I like to get? Would I like to get the Ford Focus RS, or would I like to get the Mustang? I'd like the Mustang, but it's not practical. And you know, where am I going to park it? And when you look at local garages, I could barely reverse into it. It'd be like 1 inch either side. You know.
Yeah. Here's the Alpha. I kind of bought it with my heart, not my head. But I don't regret it. Anyway, next question. We have loads of questions this time compared to last week, which is good. Renus Dregers, I don't know if I pronounced that right, but anyway, he says, "What is your best or favorite moment in virtual racing this year?" When he says virtual racing, does he mean like esports?
No, just general, just
generally.
Racing gaming. That's your favorite moment in racing gaming.
Favorite moment.
Yeah, that's a
moment.
I guess for me, it's taking the Lamborghini Countach to the Nürburgring in Assetto Corsa.
Ooh, yes.
That for me was special, shall we say? Really, really enjoyed it. That's probably the most standout moment for me. It's just so much fun. You know, phenomenal audio. Yeah. It really feels like you're in the car. You're very hard to handle car. You know, they were pretty dangerous back then, supercars, and for me, that really sort of lived up to expectation.
Possibly for me, the first few moments of Forza Horizon 3, just because it's so mind-blowingly beautiful. And you just think to yourself, is this really running on Xbox One?
That's a tough question. You know, it's funny when you do as many miles of driving as I've done this year. I'm trying to think of a moment when, do you know, I'll actually just say racing the TSPC wheel recently on Racing Experience. I've been racing. I bought a race the other day on Zandvoort as a good example. And I was battling in second place for the whole race, absolutely on the limit all the way for 10 laps. And it was brilliant. And moments like that, I'm just so in the zone. I love the level of concentration required. You know, I love just diving into that, forgetting about everything else in the world and just racing as hard as I can. And Kevin will have experienced this on Assetto Corsa at times, you know, and it's great. You know, it's a great sort of buzz when you get to the end of the race. And I guess it's something like that, really. That's been the buzz that keeps me coming back, is that feeling of, you know, going quick and, you know, getting into that groove.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Anything for you, Ed?
Well, luckily I had a bit more time to think than you guys on this one, but because very difficult question, because you're thinking, well, it's sort of just time spent with mates on games where, you know, funny things happen or amazing things happen.
That's true.
So I think for me, being in the middle of like a 10-car drift train on Assetto Corsa is just probably one of the highlights for me, when we're all going around and there's like
just try to picture that, yeah.
Few of you. And I think like I can't remember who it was. It was someone on the Discord. We were all talking, and I'm driving around. I think it was like 2 cars in front of me. I'm like the third man in, and someone who had just joined the server was like, "Wow, Ed, that's a massive amount of people behind you." And I hadn't realised that like the rest of the server had all caught up to us, and we're all just like this massive train of cars, and it must have looked amazing. And it's just a
record that
feeling. Yeah, definitely need to record one of those. But I don't know. I didn't even realise it was happening. I don't know if a recording of my screen is really the best way to look at it.
Didn't you then crash though?
No.
Oh right, okay. I thought you crashed on one of them and it caused a bit of a pile up for some reason.
That does happen.
Yeah.
That definitely does happen. But when it goes really smoothly, that's probably one of the best things to happen. Amazing.
Nice. And then just over on Twitter, we have just a couple of questions left. James Allen says, what should racing game developers and publishers take away from 2016? Is there anything you feel they should build upon or learn from for 2017?
Well, easy answer to that. Easy answer. Read the Team VVV reviews. I think the reviews from all of you guys have been excellent this year. I think they show in great detail what is right and what is wrong and where they need to improve. And I think if people just took the time to read those reviews and understand them, they'd show exactly what they need to do to their games. And that is it.
Yeah, good answer. And then Jeff on Twitter says, what are the team's thoughts on the upcoming Project Cars 2? And wouldn't it be great if they included some BTCC races? Yes, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, we've kind of spoken before a bit about Project Cars 2 and our expectations, but let's just say they're very high. We really do think it has the potential to be really the next great thing in the genre, to be honest.
Absolutely.
I think Gran Turismo Sport used to watch itself.
We miss BTCC, don't we? And
we're not going to get BTCC. I mean, I think
get a full title, so we're going to have to sort of rely on expansions here and there. And
we had some in a race room, but apart from that,
yeah,
I think of all the games, Project Cars is probably the most likely.
Yes, that is true. I mean, there are so many tracks in the original game from the Touring Car Championship as well.
Yeah,
that have been kind of neglected in games like Alton Park and Snetterton and tracks like that.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a good selection in there, and I think if they can add 2 or 3 more, then they can have pretty much the whole season in there. I mean, if you look at the track list that they have, and then you could list probably about 10 more circuits, that would mean they could do BTCC and World Endurance Championship. You know, they would have, you know, a great selection in there, because don't forget they have obviously the old Audi, if they still have that license. They'll have Porsche and Toyota in terms of WEC. So, you know, I mean, they've got Le Mans, they've got Spa, so they can do Spa. They've got Nürburgring. They only need, say, Brazil would be a good one. They've got Dubai. So, I mean, they could do a great WEC championship in there. They've got Imola. So, yeah, I think to see BTCC in Project Cars 2 would be amazing. Certainly, for me, it's the game I'm most excited about, following relative disappointment on what I've seen on Gran Turismo Sport so far.
That's it, yeah. And finally, one last question from Toomba Online. They say, why is localizing games for the North American market difficult for developers of Ride 2 and WRC? Yeah, that's the thing. They do get delayed a lot in America. We get asked that quite a lot as it happens.
It's a lot of it's down to cost of releasing in the US is very, very high. So what some of the smaller games companies need to do, especially with WRC, which is predominantly not huge in the US, and some of these different things like the MXGP is also very much European. They have their own motocross series in the US. So, you know, you're trying to bring a foreign product to the US. Sometimes I think that a limited release would work, but they like to release it properly. So it means finding a US publisher who's willing to distribute that in the US. They need a certain amount of money. They need a certain amount to produce the amount of stock required as well. So generally they release it in the European territories, make as much income back from as they can, and then they know how much they have to work with a US publisher. And if it doesn't sell enough, then it won't get released in the US anyway, because they know the US is largely a weaker market for it. Having said that, I don't know why that applies to digital releases now, because you don't have to manufacture the stock. And I think in some cases a digital only release distributed by the UK or the European distributor should still suffice. You know, it won't sell as well, but at least it means US gamers can get their hands on some of these titles. But yeah, that's been the sort of key stumbling block, is cost and logistical issues.
It happens both ways, really, with like things like the NASCAR games not coming over here as much.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right. I mean, NASCAR isn't as big here. So, you know, unless it's a really, really good standalone game.
It did come out eventually, like 2 months later, I think.
think Codemasters as well. I mean, Codemasters go through another distributor in the US. I can't remember who they go through, which publisher, but they get published by big US companies.
Right. That's it then for the Q&A and also this very long podcast. Yeah, we won't be doing one next week. So, well, I think we've made up for those since this podcast is probably twice as long as usual. Unless anyone else has anything else to add.
No, just
That's
I hope you've enjoyed, I guess, all the podcasts this year. We're going to keep on working on this and building on it in 2017 and taking all of your feedback. So do give us your feedback on the podcast and everything you'd like to see involved in that.
And we are trying to get it on iTunes before you suggest that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thanks as always for listening. Thanks for your feedback. From everyone here, we hope you have a great Christmas. And, well, we'll see you again next year. Goodbye.